Reborn in 1960, while others brought spatial storage and system cheats, I brought a head full of killing moves. Crouch down and look at hoofprints for 3 seconds, and I can tell the number of wolves, their direction, and how many minutes ago they passed. The old lead hunter's face went pale. Who did you learn that from? I had no way to explain. I couldn't exactly say that in my previous life I had been surrounded by wolves, chased by bears, and died, and come back to life again and again in the forest for a full 40 years. August 1960, Greater Khingan Range, Hunter New Village. At 4:30 in the morning, I sat up from the heated Kong bed and struck a match to light the kerosene lamp. I felt a little excited. These past few days I finally fully understood. I was reborn and had returned to age 17. I made too many mistakes in my previous life, spent my whole life scrambling to make a living, and lived quite a failed life. In my later years, I traveled to Guangxi with my son's family and encountered a mudslide on a national highway. A car ahead plunged into the river while trying to avoid the mudslide. I jumped into the water, smashed the window, and rescued a family of 4. But when I was down to the last girl, everything went black before my eyes. When I opened them again, I was back at 17. The noise I made getting up woke my family on the Kong. My father, Litiniu, propped himself up and sat up. Watching me start packing my gear, a guilty expression appeared on his face. He tried to speak several times, but couldn't get the words out. My mother, Zhao Xiaofeng, couldn't hold back anymore and said anxiously, "Son, how about we don't go? You've never gone into the mountains for a hunt before. Even though you've gone around a few times with your father, your mother really can't stop worrying." I turned and smiled to reassure her. "Mom, just put your mind at ease. It's not like I'm going alone. The whole hunting gang is setting out together. What are you worried about? Just stay home and take good care of Dad. I'm 17 this year. Dad's leg is injured and he can't hunt, so it's my turn to shoulder this family." Dad let out a sigh and said guiltily, "It's all Dad's fault. If I hadn't gotten greedy and wanted to hunt that squirrel, I wouldn't have failed to watch the road and stepped into someone else's trap." I said with a smile, "Dad, stop talking like that. What hunter in the forest doesn't get injured? Just focus on healing and leave everything to me." Dad really was unlucky. His lower leg fracture wasn't caused by anything else. He simply failed to watch where he was going and stepped into someone else's trap. A hunter stepping into someone else's trap. No one would dare believe it if you told them. This time it was a dog hunt. The hunting gang originally wasn't very willing to take me because I had no experience with dog hunts. But I directly showed off my marksmanship with the gun and earned lead hunter Zhao's approval, which got me in. I was maintaining the gun I'd be taking this time, a Type 53 No. 12 double-barrel, double-trigger shotgun, specially used for hunting large game. This was my father's treasure, something he had spent a great deal of money to buy. While ordinary hunters usually only had single-barrel shotguns. I went to the kitchen to light the fire and ate the corn buns my mother had deliberately made extra of last night. Then I carried the warm dog food to the dog shed, opened the cage doors, and let out only the 4 dogs we were taking this time. The moment Hazel ran out, she excitedly circled around me, sensing that we were going into the woods to hunt and looking extremely keyed up. Hazel was a female dog, lean and lanky, with a thunderous bark and an exceptional nose for tracking scent. Under her direction, our family's dog pack performed well on every hunt and was a main force of the hunting gang. On hunting days like today, they could only be fed half full, just enough to keep up their strength. Feed them too much and they'd get lazy instead, with no speed in their running and no willingness to work hard. Our family kept 9 dogs in total, but this time we were only taking 4. Hazel, Wangkai, Huabao, and Hailing. Hazel was both a scent-tracking dog and the lead dog. Wangkai had the strongest build and was a heavy gripper. Once he bit a prey animal's ear, he wouldn't let go. Huabao wasn't as big as Wangkai and was also a heavy gripper. But she was a throat-lock killer with the trickiest attack angle of them all. Once she struck and locked onto the throat, she would never let go. Hailing was lean, long-limbed, and swift, a sly little clever devil who only ever launched sneak attacks at the prey's rear. All the other dogs get injured, but it comes through unscathed, relying on its agility to keep circling behind the prey's rear, waiting for a chance to bite. The rest are either new dogs or pregnant, so they can't be brought along. New dogs can't keep up with the pace and will affect the drive. In my previous life, because my dad was injured, the hunting crew thought I lacked experience and didn't let me go on the hunt, so I missed that one. The game taken that time was very plentiful, and each person got a share worth 30 or 40 yuan. So this time I went straight to Chief Zhao to show off my marksmanship. Dad is injured, so I have to shoulder the family and can't miss this kind of money-making opportunity. These days, a worker in the city only earns a monthly wage of a few dozen yuan, and the returns from one drive hunt are this high. Enough to exchange for food for a family of 5 for over a month. Our Hunter New village is full of hunting households. The forest farm hasn't been developed this far yet, and there is no land to cultivate, so we rely entirely on hunting and selling to the supply and marketing cooperative purchasing station in exchange for grain and money. I put a dog leash on Heisey. The lead dog can command the pack, so it must be kept on a leash. Only after the hunting target is found can it be released to lead the pack in the charge. Heisey barked twice at the 3 dogs, and Wang Kai and the others obediently followed in front of and behind me as we headed toward Chief Zhao's house. Chief Zhao, Uncle Wang, Uncle Li, Elder Uncle Zhao. This time there were 15 people and 35 dogs in the dog drive hunt. Everyone knew each other, and when gathered together they chatted and joked. Gunner Wang Taizhu laughed loudly and said, "Weidong, once you're in the forest, don't be like your dad, caring more about money than your life, not even looking down at the road." Led Gunner Chun Daong laughed heartily and said, "Haha, stop making fun of Tina all the time. He's already unlucky enough, save him some face." Faced with everyone's teasing, I didn't get annoyed. I knew there was no malice. It was just that my dad getting injured was too absurd. I said with a grin, my dad deserved it. Luckily, there wasn't anything else in that trap, or he wouldn't even have been able to laugh if people mocked him." Chief Zhao said with a smile, "It's Weidong's first time joining a big drive hunt. Once you're in the forest, stay close to everyone and don't go running around by yourself. You must follow instructions. A drive hunt is no joke, so be extremely careful." "Got it, Chief Zhao, don't worry. I may not have done a drive hunt before, but I've followed my dad into the forest plenty of times, so I understand the rules." In August, the Greater Khingan Mountains are a stunning palette of golden larches, fiery red bird cherry trees, and deep green Mongolian pines growing mixed together. The forest floor is covered with soft fallen leaves that rustle underfoot. If this were a sightseeing trip, it would definitely be very pleasant. Unfortunately, we're hurrying on our way, so I'm really in no mood to appreciate it. These leaf-covered paths are especially tiring to walk uphill on. The air carried a fresh, blended scent. Thin mist drifted through the woods, and after sunrise the sunlight poured down, forming beams of golden light. I led Heisey on the leash behind the team. After walking for quite a while, Chief Zhao's shout came from up ahead. "Everyone, pay attention. Let's rest and regroup here first and sort out the formation." I felt relieved. We had set out at 5:30, and by now we had gone 3 hours without stopping. I set my things down and carefully placed the gun with the muzzle facing outward. That's an iron rule. Seeing this, Chief Zhao said cheerfully, "Well now, Weidong, not bad. Even though it's your first time going into the mountains with the hunting crew, you already know the rules for setting down a gun. Looks like your dad taught you quite a lot." I grinned and said, "Chief, you're underestimating me, aren't you? Anyone going into the mountains ought to know the rules." Everyone burst out laughing. Something sounds simple, but not many people can really do them. A lot of people go into the mountains for the first time, get reminded of the rules countless times, and still make mistakes. The laughter startled the animals in the forest, and the sound of hazel grouse flapping their wings rang out. I took off my canteen and drank a big mouthful of water. Beside me, Li Shulin, who had also finished drinking, asked with a smile, "Weidong, it's your first time going deep into the forest. It feels different from hunting hazel grouse and gray squirrels on the outskirts, doesn't it?" I raised an eyebrow and replied, "Feel? I don't feel much. Brother Shulin, you've only been into the mountains a few times yourself." "What? Trying to act like an old hand in front of me. Damn, you little brat. How did your mouth get so sharp?" I curled my lip. Li Shulin treated me like a newcomer, but in fact I was much more familiar with this stretch of forest than he was. Usually, a dog drive hunt doesn't bring that many dogs. A dozen or so is about enough. You need to drive the prey to one place and arrange people to ambush it. 4 or 5 lead dogs, 7 or 8 fast helper dogs, and 5 or 6 hold dogs are enough. But this time it wasn't an ordinary dog drive hunt. It was going to be a large surround hunt, marking off a wide area to drive the prey. That requires more dogs and people to form an encirclement, so more prey can be taken. The whole surround hunt process really tests the coordination of the dog pack. For the lead dog, you have to assess its ability to scent prey, whether it's smart, and whether it can seize the right moment. The lead dog is the most important one in the pack. If it's not smart enough and can't seize the right moment, it will bark on scent too early. As the saying goes, hunting dogs fear nothing more than barking on scent too early. Once the dogs bark, the birds and beasts flee. If a hunting dog barks too early, it will scare off the prey. and a dog like that is judged unqualified, fit only to guard the house and yard. The dog pack works with divided roles: lead dogs search, helper dogs chase, hold dogs bite. To sum it up in one sentence, the lead dog scouts ahead, the helper dogs circle on both sides, and the hold dogs bite from behind. After resting for 10 minutes, Head Zhao clapped his hands to gather everyone and began assigning the teams. Li Fugawei, take your squad along the upper route and drive the mountain down from the saddle. Old Yang, you're responsible for taking your squad along the lower route to circle over and drive the foothills. Weidong, you go with Old Yang to drive the foothills too. Daong and I will take people to lie in ambush on the left and right flanks. Driving the mountain means flushing out the prey, and lying in ambush means waiting on the prey's necessary path to deliver a fatal blow. I didn't want to go along the lower route to drive the foothills. Driving the prey uphill takes a lot of stamina, and you can miss the chance to kill it. The people driving at the mountain's foot usually gain the least. Although most of the prey is divided evenly, those who bag more prey get a larger share. I hurriedly said, Head Zhao, it's my first time doing a dog drive hunt, so logically I should follow orders and drive the foothills. But precisely because it's my first time, wouldn't it be more suitable for me to drive the mountain with Uncle Li? It's easy to fall behind going uphill. Only going downhill can you keep up with the pace. Head Zhao thought about it and felt that made sense. He waved his hand and said, Fine, considering it's your first time and you lack experience, go with Li Fugawei to drive the mountaintop. Everyone, get moving and hurry to drive the prey to the designated place. The crowd responded one after another, some whistling, others calling out directly, and led the dog pack off along their routes. I took the bronze gong from old Third Lu, who was carrying the pot, and followed Li Fugawei uphill. Li Fugawei said cheerfully, Haha, Weidong, you've got a good eye. You know that if you follow your uncle, there'll be meat to eat. I grinned. Li Fugawei and I couldn't have been more familiar with each other. In my previous life, we often hunted and drank together. Even my wife was introduced by his auntie from a village on her maternal family's side. But that woman was unbelievably shrewish. She often fought with me and nagged all day, saying others got rich while cursing me for being useless and spineless. Even if it kills me, I wouldn't marry that woman as my wife again in this life. There were only 4 people driving the mountaintop. The forest on this side was shaped a bit like a pyramid, with a larger area below that needed more people. There were 3 people lying in ambush on each side. Gun leader Wang Taizhu took one team, and Head Zhao led one team, while the remaining 5 were responsible for driving the foothills. Li Fugawei was a little worried. Weidong, stick with me later. Let Senwazi and Erniu go on one side. Otherwise I won't feel at ease about you, a novice. Just as I was about to say there was no need to worry, that I knew how to drive the mountain, the dog pack stirred. Whether it was Haizi or Li Fugawei's lead dog Huzi, both scenting dogs let out their distinctive clunking sounds. Its front legs scraped the ground, and its tail stood straight up, swaying. This was the signal that it had found prey. Li Fugawei was about to speak, but I waved him off and quickly walked in the direction Haizi was looking, carefully checking the marks on the ground. I soon stood up and pointed at the hoof prints in delight. Uncle Li, we're going to strike it rich. Judging by the tracks, a wolf pack is hunting a wild boar. Far from being alarmed, everyone was thrilled and stepped forward to examine the messy, fresh hoof prints. That's right, they were traces of a wild boar and a wolf pack. These days, wolf packs may be frightening, but poverty is even more frightening. A complete wolf pelt could sell for 35 yuan or 100 yuan on the black market. As long as we ran into a wolf pack, nobody was afraid. They were only afraid of not finding one. This was all money. Li Fugawei said decisively, load up now and follow them to see if we can drive them down. If not, we'll just fight them head on. 35 for one pelt. Whether we get through a comfortable winter depends on this shot. I tied the dog leash to my belt and took down the Type 53 double-barreled hunting shotgun I was carrying on my back. Number 12 slug rounds, tremendously powerful. If it hit a vital spot, one shot could even bring down a bear. Erniu, Senwazi, take my dogs and head upward for 5 minutes, then cut straight across. Li Fugawei and I will directly follow his dogs in 5 minutes. Zhao Erniu nodded. Okay, you two go a little slower and set off again after 6 minutes, so we don't lose track of you. Li Fugawei handed Huzi's leash to Zhao Erniu. Everyone was familiar with these dogs. Once given the leash, they knew who to follow. I crouched down to soothe Haizi, who was growing restless after not getting a response, while silently counting the time in my head. In those days there were no watches, so time was kept entirely by mental counting. When it was about right, I said to Li Fugawei, "Uncle Li, time's up. Let's go," Li Fugaway said in surprise. "Weidong, you can even count time in your head? Your dad never gets it right. He actually taught you this?" I gave a chuckle without answering, untied Heizi's lead, and ordered, "Send it, slow sniff." Heizi shot out at once on command, constantly sniffing the hoofprints here and there. Before long, it gave me a muffled grunt. "Follow the hoofprints." I waved my hand, and Heizi started running, with Black Wolf close behind, while Wonkai and Huabao chased after them from the rear. Father didn't like Black Wolf for exactly this reason. In his words, Black Wolf was too smart and too good at putting on an act. Just like now, sticking close behind Heizi and looking very eager. But when it really encountered prey, it would play clever tricks and let the other dogs go first. I didn't mind. A gut-ripping dog had to be shameless and cunning enough to successfully bring down prey. Every dog had its strengths and weaknesses, and a dog drive hunt was about using each one's strengths to achieve the best results. The two of us quickly followed, with the pack leading the way, especially with Heizi scenting. There was no need to worry too much about safety. If any dangerous beast appeared, they would warn us at once. When we came to a fork, Heizi stopped and sniffed back and forth, then after confirming the direction, gave me a muffled grunt and continued leading once it got the order. The whole tracking process was a mix of running and stopping, which made it easy for the hunters to keep up. After all, hunters couldn't sprint at high speed for long the way the dogs could. These dogs were very well trained and understood commands clearly. That was also why we didn't bring any new dogs this time. New dogs weren't familiar with commands and could easily mess things up. After tracking for 10 minutes, Heizi suddenly stopped, its back arched, ears pricked straight up, breathing lightly. It turned its head toward the two of us who had caught up, and a short, low muffled sound came from its throat. Kept very quiet, the prey was right ahead. Li Fugaway and I exchanged a glance, and he nodded. The two of us gripped our hunting shotguns and carefully followed behind Heizi as it moved forward slowly, sniffing the scent. The other three dogs also lightened their steps and adjusted their breathing. These were all experienced old dogs, and they knew how not to startle the prey. Before long, we heard movement. Crouching low, we moved forward, and in the clearing ahead, a wild boar weighing over 100 kg had its ears clamped by two wolves, one on each side. Several wild boars nearby were protecting the piglets, occasionally charging at the wolves rushing up. The boars snorting and the wolves' low growls rose and fell one after another. I hesitated a little. Beside me, Li Fugaway also frowned. There were at least 20 wolves in the pack. I whispered, "Uncle Fugaway, why are there so many wolves here? Aren't there usually only about a dozen?" Li Fugaway said in a low voice, "No idea. There's something strange about this wolf pack. A pack this big is rare. This forest isn't even that large. How could it support such a big pack? We miscalculated. We shouldn't have split into two groups. If Ernie Yu and the others were here, with 4 of us, for guns and 8 dogs, we'd have enough to risk taking on this wolf pack." I frowned. There were too many wolves. With 2 guns, each round meant only 3 bullets total. Even if every shot hit, we could only kill 3. Even at this distance, if we managed 2 rounds, with every shot hitting, that would still only be 6, which was nowhere near enough to stop the rest of the pack from swarming us all at once. But making me give up meat already at my mouth really stung. I looked around, spotted a tree, and gritted my teeth. "Uncle Fugaway, let's gamble on this and climb the trees." Li Fugaway froze, surprise showing on his face, then shook his head. "Weidong, we can't do that. You want to abandon Heizi and the others." I chuckled and pointed at a tree not far away. "Uncle Fugaway, you climb up first. I'll send the dogs up, and you tie my dogs to the tree. Then we'll come back down and climb other trees to shoot the wolves. Can you really bear to give up this many wolf pelts?" Li Fugaway was dumbfounded. After a long pause, he said, "Weidong, what on earth is in that head of yours? This is the first time I've ever heard of tying dogs to trees. Don't worry about how I came up with it. We're doing it this way. If we don't leave a few wolves behind to skin, I really won't be able to accept it." Actually, this wasn't something I just thought of. It was from a few years later in my previous life, when my father and I were hunting and got surrounded by a large wolf pack. In a flash of inspiration, my father came up with the idea of tying the dogs to trees too. That time, not only were the dogs saved, we also killed 8 wolves. The wolf pack kept watch outside for the entire night, unable to do anything to the 2 of us. In the end, they couldn't even take away the bodies of their own pack members and slunk off in defeat. 3 gunshots rang out. 3 wolves that had been tearing at the wild boar fell, and the remaining wolves scattered in all directions. The hidden alpha let out a howl, and before long, Some wolves slowly moved back toward the prey and the dead wolves. Another 3 gunshots rang out, and this time 2 fell. I looked at Li Fugawei beside me, and he gave an embarrassed smile. My hand slipped, really slipped. Otherwise this shot would have hit 2. I took down 4 wolves with 4 bullets. Li Fugawei's shotgun was a single-barrel one, so he could only fire 1 shot and reload 1 shot at a time. With 2 chances, he only killed 1 wolf. The gap in results was too big, and he couldn't save face. I quickly reloaded and said with a grin, "Haha, don't worry, Uncle Fugawei. There are still plenty of wolves left. You'll have lots of chances to show what you can do." Just then, a broken, hoarse, unpleasant howl suddenly rang out. The sound no longer carried intimidation, only urgency. The moment I heard it, my face changed, and I cursed loudly. "Grass mud horse, what kind of alpha are you? You might as well be a king of cowards. Only 5 dead, and you're already running? Damn, that's pathetic." Li Fugawei was completely baffled. "Weidong, what the hell has gotten into you?" I snapped back irritably. "What do you mean? What has gotten into me? Didn't you hear the alpha giving the retreat signal? The duck already at our mouths has flown away. How could that not be infuriating? You can understand what wolf howls mean." Of course, if I couldn't understand them, why would I be angry? I was no rookie. After so many years of hunting in my previous life, I knew wolf howls like the back of my hand. If the alpha's howl was a long one and the pack answered with short howls, that meant it was summoning the pack. 2 or 3 short howls mean prey has been spotted, and the order is to encircle it. A sharp, non-stop, rapidly rising howl means dangerous prey has been encountered and the wolf pack is being ordered to retreat immediately. If there are several rapid, continuous wolf howls in a single second, then you need to stay alert. It means the Wolf King has given the order to attack with full force regardless of the cost, something usually only heard when the cubs are under attack. All of this was knowledge I gained from hunting in my previous life. Although Li Fugawei calls me uncle, he's actually only 26 or 27, and his experience may not necessarily be richer or more seasoned than mine. Gunshots came from the distance, and my heart tightened, but I quickly relaxed. I could tell the shots weren't coming from the direction the wolf pack had retreated. Although I knew the howl just now was the signal for the pack to retreat. I didn't dare let my guard down in the slightest, and Li Fugawei and I waited in the tree for more than 10 minutes. Only when I saw Zhao Erniu and Sunwazi running over with the dogs did I finally feel at ease enough to climb down from the tree. Seeing the 2 of us coming down from the tree, they lit up and ran over. Sunwazi hurriedly asked, "Fugawei, Weidong, what happened? Why are the dogs gone?" When we came through, we saw such a big pack of wolves that we didn't dare let the dogs loose or fire our guns. We wanted to circle over and meet up with you first, but all we heard were your gunshots, and by the time we got there, the wolf pack was nowhere to be seen. Li Fugawei rubbed the heads of his 4 dogs to soothe them, then jerked his chin toward a nearby tree. "Take a look at that." The 2 turned their heads and saw the 4 dogs tied to the tree, quiet and not making a sound, and they were both dumbfounded. "Ha ha ha, didn't expect that, did you? It was Weidong's idea. Tie the dogs to the tree and you don't have to worry about the wolf pack surrounding us. We killed 5 wolves up in the tree. Hurry and let the dogs down so they can help deal with them." I looked completely calm and said, "I killed 4 wolves." The boastful Li Fugawei instantly wilted and quickly changed the subject, asking them to give us a hand because we needed to get the dogs down right away. Heisey and the others could understand the command not to bark randomly. After being let down, only when I gave the command did they whine and circle around me, as if complaining about how uncomfortable it had been to be tied to the tree. I patted their heads one by one to calm them, and then our group headed toward the prey. 5 wolves, plus 3 wild boars that had been bitten to death by the wolves, were all valuable spoils. But time was tight, so we all took out our hunting knives and began skinning and gutting the prey. I also started processing the wild boars, first rewarding my family's 4 dogs. Heisey had to be fed first, because Heisey ranked higher than Li Fugawei's Huzi. If Huzi was fed first, Heisey would fight with Huzi. And after feeding Heisey, I also had to feed my own dogs first. If I fed someone else's dogs first, they would get jealous and angry, and they would also fight with the other dogs. This is something the owner must pay attention to when feeding them. This situation won't occur if someone else feeds them. As long as the lead dog is fed first, then feeding the other dogs is no problem. This is a rule that must be followed. Hunters have hunters' rules, and the dog pack has the dog pack's rules. If you don't feed the lead dog first and break the rules, they may stop obeying commands. Still, they can't be fed too full, because they still have to drive game on the mountain. Because we've created a gap on our side now, it will likely affect the entire hunting party's hunt. With 5 wolves and 2 wild boars, it's enough to give everyone an explanation. After everything was dealt with, Li Fugui and I were responsible for taking the dogs to drive off wild animals, while Zhao Erniu and Sunwazi stayed behind to guard the hall. Startling the grass to scare the snake. Driving off wild beasts works on the same principle. I banged the gong while Haizi and the others cooperated by barking wildly, and we made our way up the mountain. But because we hadn't been able to drive them off in time, the prey might have escaped in this direction. There wasn't much movement along the way until we met up with the others. There was some gain on this side too. There were both wild boars and roe deer, and quite a few people were processing the prey. Seeing that only the 2 of us had come down, Chief Zhao frowned and grabbed me. Fugui. Weidong, why are only the 2 of you back? Gunshots kept going off up there. What happened? I quickly explained. Chief, don't worry. Brother Erniu and the others are guarding the prey at the mountain pass. We ran into a wolf pack up there, a huge pack of 25 or 26 wolves. It forced us to climb trees to hide, which is why we came down so late after driving the mountain. Li Fugui also hurriedly said with a smile. Chief, the harvest was pretty good this time. We killed 5 wolves and picked up 2 big wild boars. Hearing this, everyone was astonished and started asking about the wolf pack with looks of regret. This area actually isn't deep enough into the forest. Usually a wolf pack of around a dozen already counts as a large pack, yet we unexpectedly ran into a huge pack of more than 20. Hearing this, Chief Zhao didn't seem regretful, but instead said with a wary expression, large wolf packs usually don't come out this way. If this happens, it's very likely that a big claw has appeared and seized their territory, so the wolves ran over here. I was shocked when I heard that and asked in confusion, a big claw? Chief, are you mistaken? That thing couldn't possibly appear in our area, could it? A woo! A wolf's howl rang out from the distant mountains and forest. It was a signal to assemble. In just 1 hour, the wolf pack had already run off to a distant hilltop. After discussing the harvest here, everyone felt today's haul was pretty good. Since they had taken quite a few wild boars and roe deer, they weren't planning to stay overnight in the mountains, and there wasn't enough time to continue hunting. So they simply arranged for some people to process and guard the prey here, while the others went up the mountain together to help carry the prey down. After regrouping, they would set off for home. Who would have thought you actually got 4 wolves? Weidong, you kid are really something. Haha, I won't pretend to be modest about that. 4 shots. For wolves, every shot hit. Being modest about results like that would be a bit too fake. The group chatted and laughed as they headed uphill. After arriving here, the prey had also been processed, so everyone began dividing up the work, stuffing the prey into burlap sacks, each carrying some on their back as they headed home. By the time they returned to the village, it was already after 5 p.m. There was a supply and marketing cooperative station here, so everyone began preparing to sell the prey. When Lu Qingjun, the purchasing agent at the supply station, saw so much prey, a delighted smile appeared on his face. He was happy because supplies were scarce now, so purchasing game, to him, was a very important work assignment. Roe deer pelts were 5 to 8 yuan each, and the meat was 0.2 yuan per jean. Wolf pelts were 35 each, and wolf meat with bones was 0.4 yuan per jean. At this time, probably because wolves harmed livestock and their bones were used medicinally, wolves were quite valuable. Wild boar hides, depending on size, were 5 to 15 each, and wild boar meat was 0.25 yuan per jean. Li Weidong took out a piece of wild boar meat weighing more than 10 jean and said cheerfully to the others, "We're a bit short on meat at home, so I'll take this piece back to eat first. You can deduct it from my share later." Chief Zhao waved his hand and said, "Everyone take a piece. You all worked hard today, especially Weidong. It's his first time hunting with us, yet he managed to stay calm in the face of danger, and even took down 4 wolves by himself. He contributed the most to our haul this time. Do you all agree to give him an extra share?" Chen Daong said with a smile. "Agreed. Whoever contributes more gets an extra share. That's our old rule. Just because it's Weidong's first time hunting with us doesn't mean we break that old rule. That's right, just follow the rules." Everyone voiced their agreement. Chief Zhao took the lead in picking up some wild boar meat, and before long, everyone had a piece of wild boar meat in hand. Although there was a lot of meat, this concerned the work assignment. Lu Chengjun hurried forward and tried to persuade them. "Folks, you can't do this. Right now, all kinds of meat are urgently needed everywhere to support production and construction. It's fine if you take a little home to eat, but don't take so much." Old Lu, cut the sarcastic remarks. "If we don't eat meat, how will we have the strength to go hunting?" "Exactly. If we don't go hunting, what will you use to fulfill your assignment?" Everyone chimed in all at once, using the matter to egg each other on. leaving Lu Qingjun red-faced and completely unable to save face. Compared with them, Li Weidong had no issue with old Lu. The hunting gang disliked him because every time game prices were adjusted, he was the one who came out to notify them, so everyone always felt they were being pushed around by him. Actually, old Lu wasn't the problem. He was just a grassroots worker carrying out policy. He purchased according to whatever arrangements came from above. It wasn't up to him personally. In his previous life, Li Weidong didn't know that either and disliked him just the same. It was only later, after learning about the various circumstances and understanding things clearly, that he realized old Lu had actually been treated quite unfairly. To put it bluntly, he was just a hired hand. However, the 19th station commune required him to do things. That was how he had to do them. He had no say in the matter at all. Li Weidong quickly stepped forward and said, "All right, everyone, stop talking. Old Lu has it hard too. He can't change the purchase prices adjusted by those above, can he? Everyone calm down. After all, we'll keep running into each other, and we'll still have to continue dealing with one another in the future. So let's not hurt the harmony." Lu Qingjun hadn't expected Li Weidong to speak up for him, and a trace of gratitude appeared on his face, thinking that at last someone was speaking up for him. Life was hard for grassroots people like them. You had to know these hunters were all very hot-tempered people. Sometimes when those above adjusted the purchase prices of some game, he could only purchase at that price. These hunters then thought he was bullying them, and sometimes things got unpleasant, and if words didn't agree, a fist would come flying over. Tell me, how wronged was he? Zhao Badu also said a few words to persuade them, and finally the matter was smoothed over. Not long after, they began weighing the game. The hides from the 5 wolves sold for 175 yuan, and the wolf meat weighed 415 jin, for a total of 146 yuan. These wolves were a bit thin. Generally, after skinning and removing the entrails, wolves around here weigh 90 to 100 jin for males, and around 70 to 80 jin for females. The hides of the 8-row deer brought in 60 yuan, and 480 jin of meat sold for 97 yuan. The wild boar meat totaled 480 jin, at 0.25 yuan per jin. It came to only 120 yuan, and the wild boar hide sold for 56 yuan, making a total of 654 yuan. After deducting 54 yuan as public expenses, this money being for the costs of grain, bullets, and the like bought when the supply hunting gang entered the mountains, exactly 600 yuan remained to be divided. The hunting gang's rule was that the headman got 2.5 shares, the lead shooter got 2 shares, and the other hunters got 1 share each. Anyone who brought dogs and took part got an extra half share. A total of 7 people had brought dogs, which meant an extra 3.5 shares had to be divided. Because Li Weidong had killed 4 wolves, he got 1 extra share, so the money needed to be divided into 22 shares. Li Weidong couldn't be bothered to calculate everyone else's. Anyway, this time he got 2.5 shares, which meant 1 share came to 27.3 yuan, and he received 68.25 yuan. As Li Weidong counted the money, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. This money was a huge sum for his family. The hunter's new village was under the jurisdiction of the 19th Station Forest Farm. Although this place was a forest farm, they had no grain ration coupons, so they could only buy grain at negotiated prices. Flour that cost 0.16 yuan per jin outside had to be bought here for 0.28 yuan, and everything was sold at negotiated prices. The hunters' new village was established after the founding of the nation, and in 58 they were to be incorporated into the commune to take part in collective production. But the entire village consisted of hunters, with no experience at all in farming the land. In addition, after the forest farm was established, people were needed to process game, and since the hunter new village residents didn't know how to farm, they were placed under the forest farm's hunting brigade. But because they were not employees and could not get grain ration coupons, they could only buy negotiated price grain or go to the black market to buy grain themselves. If it were in the past, going to the black market to buy grain would definitely have been more convenient. But now it was a time of hardship, and even the black market didn't have much grain to sell. Many people have a misunderstanding and think there's no shortage of grain here, but in fact grain is in very short supply here too. Right now, white flour on the black market costs 2.5 yuan per jin, and cornmeal costs 1.8 yuan per jin. So although they could only buy negotiated price grain, which was a bit more expensive than the state-priced grain ordinary people bought, it was still far better than the sky-high grain prices on the black market. Li Weidong first went to buy a few packs of cigarettes, mainly because his craving had kicked in. He had smoked for decades in his previous life, and after suddenly returning to his younger days, he still couldn't hold back the urge to smoke. Cigarettes were also sold at negotiated prices. Double Fish brand cigarettes only cost others 0.14 yuan, but here they cost 0.20 yuan. Li Weidong bought 10 packs in one go, and also bought 5 boxes of matches for 0.60 yuan. 2 bottles of Gaxian by Baijiu cost 2.20 yuan, and after thinking it over, he bought a small pack of 10 fruit hard candies as well. Outside, fruit hard candies could be bought for 0.01 yuan each. But at the station here, they cost 0.02 yuan each. Everything carried a markup. This situation wouldn't last much longer, because in 63, the entire Hunter New Village would be incorporated into the Forest Farm household registration. By then, they too would be forest farm workers living on fixed grain rations. Calculating it all, he had spent a total of 5 yuan, leaving 63.25 yuan, with 60 yuan to give his mother to buy grain tomorrow. After calling out to everyone, Li Weidong gave a whistle and called Little Black and the others out from the pack of dogs, then headed home carrying his things. Besides the things he bought and that piece of wild boar meat, they had actually also been allotted more than a dozen gene of various organs, some suitable for people to eat, and some unsuitable ones for the dogs. By this time it had already gotten dark. Hazel and the others had gone on ahead, and on the way home, they were running around with great excitement. Big brother is back. Li Weidong, only 5 years old this year, with 2 little braids, happily skipped and ran out. Li Weidong smiled and rubbed her little head. Was our 4th child good at home today? What's mom busy with? Li Weidong nodded and said, I was very good today. I kept dad company the whole time, so he wouldn't be bored. Mom is cooking in the kitchen. At this time, 13-year-old Li Weigua also ran out. In fact, the Li family had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. It's just that their eldest uncle, Li Taiju, injured his lower body in an accident, leaving him unable to have any more children. He only had 2 daughters, Li Chunmei and Li Qiufang. And third uncle Li Taidan had only 1 son, Li Weimin, and a daughter, Li Weiying. So they gave the Li family's 3rd son, Li Weijun, in adoption to eldest uncle Li Tieju's family to carry on the family line. Grandfather Li Fugui and grandmother Zhao Guilan lived with eldest uncle's family at the Shijiazhen commune. Only Li Tiniu, after the founding of New China, moved to settle in Hunter New Village after getting married and setting up his own household. Li Weigua took the wild boar meat from Li Weidong's hands and asked cheerfully, Big brother, bringing back so much wild boar meat. Did you have a good haul today? Not bad. Help take the meat to mom and have her stew it. Tonight, we'll have a good meal. Hearing this, Li Weigua nodded and ran toward the kitchen carrying the wild boar meat. Li Weidong led the 4th child back into the house. After greeting his father, he went to hang up the gun. Then he took out the cigarettes from his bag and tossed 2 packs over to his father. He then took out some fruit hard candy, unwrapped one, and stuffed it into old 4th's mouth. Li Tiniu was a little bewildered, but after picking up the 2 packs of cigarettes, he asked in some surprise, Boss, did you strike it rich? Why'd you suddenly buy cigarettes for me? Li Weidong chuckled and said, Not bad. Looks like you've had a good rest today, Dad. Your mind's pretty sharp. I made a small fortune today, so you just stay home and rest that leg without worry. Our family's livelihood for the next while is taken care of. Hearing this, Li Tiniu hurriedly pressed for details. Li Weidong didn't hide anything and told them all about what had happened to him today, leaving Li Tiniu and Li Weihong stunned. Li Tiniu's eyes were full of relief, feeling that his son had changed so much these past few days, as if he had grown up overnight. Li Weidong asked, How about having 3rd and old 4th stay home tomorrow to help take care of you? If that works, then let mom take 2nd into the mountains, and I'll go set out the nets to catch fish. We need to catch more fish now and dry them into dried fish while we can. After thinking for a moment, Li Tiniu shook his head and said, Having old 4th at home will be fine. She was the one who helped empty the chamber pot today too. But son, don't go netting fish now. Fish aren't worth much, and you have to hand over half before you can sell the rest for money. So netting fish really isn't worth it. You'd be better off setting traps for mountain chickens and hazel grouse, or hunting gray squirrels and skinning them to sell the pelts. Li Weidong was taken aback and then asked, Dad, since when do you have to hand over half the fish before you can sell them? How come I didn't know about this? Li Weidong was a bit baffled. In his previous life, although he hadn't gone netting fish, he didn't remember anything like this. Li Tiniu explained, The notice only came today. They said it's a county-issued document about using fish in place of grain or something. The rivers and lakes are collective property, so starting today, half of all fish have to be handed over. Li Weidong frowned, feeling that the course of history was somehow a little different, but there was nothing he could do about it. At a time like this, policy was policy. Once a document like that was issued, you couldn't mess around. So he nodded and said, "Got it. Then tomorrow I'll go set traps instead. Hazel grouse can at least sell for 3 yuan each, so I'd rather go set traps. And if I'm lucky enough to catch a few, it'll still be better to sell them for money and then buy fish." Right, that's exactly what I mean. Nothing beats earning your own money and then buying what you need. Fish just aren't worth much anyway. After Zhao Xiaofeng got the meat stewing in the kitchen, she hurried back to the room. Li Weidong then took out the money, kept the remaining loose change for himself, and handed 60 yuan to Zhao Xiaofeng. He said with a grin, "Mom, when you have time tomorrow, go buy some grain. Buy more and keep it stored. Grain is in short supply everywhere right now, so it's better to be prepared, in case when the time comes we want to buy some and can't." Zhao Xiaofeng took the money and said happily, "Good, my eldest son has really made something of himself. One trip into the mountains and you brought back so much money. You're far better than your father." Li Tinia blushed, but he had no way to refute that, because usually he earned at most only a dozen or 20 yuan at a time. He really had never made this much in one go like his eldest son had. Li Weidong said cheerfully, "Mom, don't say that. My dad is very capable too. It hasn't been easy for him to support our whole family by himself, and he never let you or us kids go hungry. And that's already something truly remarkable." Hearing this, Li Tiniu felt deeply comforted. His son was filial and clever. Although his school grades weren't very good, that couldn't be blamed on him. His son was definitely an exceptionally good child. "All right then, all of you with the same surname are speaking up for each other. I'm the outsider here, so I can't say anything about you father and son. Oh my fourth, just eat one piece. Why are you so greedy and eating a second one?" After finishing one fruit hard candy, Li Weihong looked lingeringly at the candies wrapped in paper on the table, her big eyes blinking as she stared at them. In the end, she still reached out, took another one, and popped it into her mouth, just as Zhao Xiaofeng happened to see it. Her big eyes darted around, and she picked up another candy, mumbling unclearly with it in her mouth. "Mom, what are you saying? I can't understand what you're saying. I'm going to take some candy for second brother to eat." "Hey, you little brat, are you pretending not to understand me? I think you're asking for a spanking." Li Weihong scampered off on her little short legs, clutching the candy as she ran toward the kitchen. Zhao Xiaofeng followed behind her, not forgetting to tuck the money away properly. Ever since she was little, the youngest sister had always been a bit sly and clever, but she turned out quite promising when she grew up, and the man she chose was also very good. After the 1980s, the couple went to the Magic City to do business, and she actually ended up doing the best among all the Li family's many brothers and sisters. Dinner wasn't eaten until very late, and the kerosene lamp had already been lit. The hunters' new village didn't get electricity until after 63, but there was never a stable power supply, with outages happening every few days, so kerosene lamps like this weren't phased out until the late 1970s. Actually, the living conditions of the hunters at this time were quite poor. The Li family's main house, for example, was 3 connected log cabins, about 25 square meters or so in total. In the room you entered first, the large heated brick bed took up half the space. And the next room beside it was the kitchen, where grain and air-dried meat were stored. The other room was a storage room and cellar, where all kinds of odds and ends, tools, hides, and other things were kept. The small kitchen outside in the yard was only used for cooking when the weather was warm. When it was cold, they cooked directly indoors, and the kitchen would instead be used to store fresh game. There was also a woodshed beside it, and a room for keeping livestock. After the weather turned cold, the dogs would be brought inside too. Otherwise, being out in the cold all day wasn't good for them, especially the little puppies, which could freeze to death. The entire yard was enclosed directly with large logs more than 3 meters high. In winter, wild beasts would come prowling around here. And if the fence wasn't built higher, letting big cats and bears easily get into the yard, that would spell disaster. Pretty much every household had a yard like this, though some families were different. For households without enclosed yards, they directly used a combination of log cabins and earth lodges, with the log cabins serving as the fence to keep out wild beasts. Each had its own advantages. Earth lodges didn't consume as much firewood for heating in winter and were a bit warmer too. The above-ground log cabins used more firewood for heating in winter, and the temperature inside was relatively lower. The family ate dinner on the Kong, and Li Weigua asked, "Big brother, shall we go gather mountain goods together tomorrow?" Li Weidong shook his head and said, "No. Tomorrow I'll go set traps. You and Mom can go gather mountain goods with the people from the village, and let Fourth stay home to help look after Dad." Zhao Xiaofeng frowned when she heard this, and Li Weidong quickly asked, "Mom, what's wrong?" "Boss, tomorrow I have to tend the vegetable patch. Otherwise our family won't have any vegetables to eat this winter." "I see. Then you just go take care of the vegetable patch. Second brother, you just go gather mountain goods with the village people." "All right, big brother, bring back a few more hazel grouse tomorrow." Come to think of it, although it's already August now, it's actually still very suitable for hunting roe deer. This thing is also a very important source of food and income for hunters. But just selling the meat isn't profitable. Meat is one of the hunter's main foods, so it's impossible to sell all the meat for money. So for hunters, things like hides, antlers, and deer fetuses are what really matter. For hunters, these are all very important sources of income. That's how it is around here. The main game in January is bears. The main time for taking deer fetuses is March and April, and wolf fur is also thick at this time. In March, the rivers thaw, and the main catches then are fish, wild ducks, and geese. Although roe deer are also active, they are rather lean at this time, so hunters only take a few as food supplements. In May and June, the main focus is antlers. At this time, antlers have the best medicinal effect, and moose also begin fattening up, making them an excellent food supplement. In July and August, the roe deer, moose, and the fish here are all at their fattest and most delicious, and wild boars are also fattening up for winter, so they're especially easy to come across. September is mainly for deer tails and deer penises. This is the rutting season for stags, so these two have the best medicinal effect at this time and can fetch a good price. As for October, there's no need to say much. Wild boars are at their fattest then, and bears have also put on autumn fat, so just focus on hunting those too. November and December are when fur is at its best, and the game is also very fat at this time. So basically hunters kill whatever they find, whether for meat or hides, both of which can sell for a good price. And these 2 months are the traditional winter hunting season. So hunters generally head into the mountains to hunt for a long period, only coming back down with their haul once they've had a full harvest. After eating and drinking his fill, Li Weidong went to feed the dogs, letting all 9 dogs out and feeding them well, constantly petting this one and rubbing that one. This was part of building a bond with the dogs. Sometimes Li Weidong would see those videos in his previous life of dogs guarding their food, and he would find them rather funny, because that was really very abnormal. Dogs are animals that recognize their owners. If they guard their food while being fed, it proves they do not regard you as their owner. And that is an extremely dangerous signal, because if you are not its owner, it may attack you at any time. So people cannot treat themselves as equal to dogs. A master-subordinate relationship must be established. You can dote on it, you can spoil it, but you must establish your absolute authority as its owner. If you insist on treating yourself as equal to a dog, then the only outcome awaiting you is being bitten by it. At this moment, all the dogs stopped eating, perked up their ears, and began barking toward the courtyard gate. "Weidong, come open the door." Li Weidong was a little surprised. It was Li Fugui's voice. He quickly answered, soothed the dogs, picked up the lantern, and went to open the courtyard gate. Li Fugui and Sunwazi came in with a flashlight. Li Weidong closed the courtyard gate behind them, then ushered the 2 of them into the house. The dogs had only barked warily after hearing movement. Once they realized the visitors were Li Fugui and the others, they stopped barking and lowered their heads to continue eating. After entering the house, Li Fugui said cheerfully, "Old Li, how's your leg feeling?" Li Tiniu invited the 2 to sit down and replied with a smile, "Same as always." "It's late. What brings you here?" Li Fugui took out some cigarettes and passed them around, then explained with a smile, "We want to go hunt hazel grouse tomorrow. Weidong here is a crack shot, so I wanted to ask him to team up and go with us." Li Weidong said in surprise, "Wait, Uncle Fugui, are you serious? Going to hunt hazel grouse in this weather?" Li Fugui quickly explained, "Here's the thing," Lu Chengjun said tomorrow. "The commune will send a truck over here with ice. When the time comes, they'll buy dead hazel grouse for 2.5 and live ones for 3 yuan, with no limit on the purchase. I was thinking this thing, although we can sell the live ones we trap for 3 yuan, this thing might not get caught even a few times after setting traps for several days. But now even the dead ones fetch 2.5, so there's quite a lot of profit in it. A lot of people know this news now and are pulling together groups to go hunt flying dragons tomorrow." Hearing this, Li Weidong felt a surge of joy and quickly asked, "Are you sure the dead ones also fetch 2.5? That's great." Sunwazi chuckled and said, "I know a place with quite a lot of flying dragons, so tomorrow you all follow me. Then we can shoot more of them, and maybe make quite a bit of money." Naturally, no one had any objection to this. In fact, Hunting with more people is quite suitable because the best way is for several people to lie in ambush in different directions. For example, if someone shoots at the flying dragons from this side, they'll run in other directions, and then people over there can shoot again. The flying dragons may change direction and run, so this way you can hinder them more and stop them from running too fast, and have a chance to bring down quite a few more. After agreeing to meet at 7 tomorrow, the two of them said goodbye and left. After seeing them off, Li Weidong first went to fetch water and went into the toilet to bathe. That's how it is in the countryside. The toilet also doubles as a bathroom. The toilet at home was very crude, and they often had to deal with the manure themselves. Their family had only one vegetable plot, and they didn't grow many crops, mainly because there was a bit too little land here. Unlike later generations, when the entire forest was felled by the forestry farm and then reclaimed into farmland, only then did the hunters' new village begin to have quite a lot of arable land for growing grain. After the country fully implemented the hunting ban, this place, relying on the forest, became a place of real farmers, either becoming forest rangers or relying on farming and gathering mountain goods to earn money and support their families. After coming out from bathing, Zhao Xiaofeng took his clothes and pulled Li Weidong aside, whispering, "Son, if you come back fairly early tomorrow after going to hunt flying dragons with them, you can go over to Tangshuigu. The day before yesterday, when I was picking hazel mushrooms there, I found quite a lot of flying dragons in that area." Li Weidong was a little surprised when he heard this and said, "No way. How could there be flying dragons over at Tangshuigu? It's so close to the roadside. If flying dragons were showing up there, the little kids in the village would have run over there to set traps long ago, right? Maybe they just flew over recently. Who knows? Perhaps they'll be gone by the time you get there. I was only telling you that if you have time, you can go take a look." Li Weidong nodded and said, "All right, if I have time I'll go have a look. If there really are some there, that wouldn't be strange. There used to be quite a lot of flying dragons in that patch of woods, but later they were simply all hunted out. Now that it's summer vacation, the village's half-grown kids run around the woods near the village all day long. After all, hunters' children all know how to use various traps and snares. Some of them have even developed very accurate slingshot skills. This thing works quite well for hitting flying dragons, pheasants, and gray squirrels." Early the next morning, the family members gradually woke up, got out of bed, and washed up. Today both Li Weidong and Li Weiguo were going out, and both needed to bring lunch, so they had to get up early to prepare. After washing up, Li Weidong took some wild boar innards and began training the pack of dogs, constantly giving them various commands. Dogs that did it right were rewarded with a piece to eat. Dogs that did it wrong were not punished, but they also got no reward at all. This kind of training has to be carried out regularly, so they develop muscle memory. That way, when he takes them hunting, they can better obey his commands. This time they were only going to hunt flying dragons and not going deep into the forest, so there was no need to bring the dogs, because even if they caught flying dragons, they couldn't feed them to the dogs. But if they go hunting and get prey, yet the dogs don't get any meat to eat, the dogs will inevitably feel unhappy. It might even cause them to become passive and slack off. So it's still more appropriate not to bring them along. The training session here lasted half an hour, and Zhao Xiaofeng had already made breakfast, thin porridge with vegetables and wild boar meat added. As the saying goes, live off the mountain by the mountain, live off the water by the water. Now that grain is in short supply, hunters like them can only eat more meat to have enough energy to maintain their strength. Ta County's grain harvest was also seriously poor this year, so there really isn't enough grain to eat now. The reason their hunter's new village is still able to buy grain is entirely because of the game and pelts obtained here. Whether it's the meat needed locally or the pelts that are in foreign exchange, both are very important, which is why there is preferential grain supply. However, their lives are much better than those over at the commune. At least they have meat and fish to replenish their energy, while the commune is still eating at the communal canteen. Things are no longer like when the communal canteen was first set up. At this time, both meals every day are watery gruel, so life is not easy at all. So when Li Weidong was in elementary school, he often needed to deliver meat to them to improve their meals. By the way, Li Weidong only graduated from elementary school, having done 4 years of lower primary and 2 years of upper primary. Logically speaking, with an upper primary graduation, it should have been quite easy for him to find a job. You should know that these days, even an upper primary education counts as being educated. But Li Weidong didn't want to work at the forestry station. In his previous life, Li Weidong's thinking was quite simple. Working at the forestry station didn't pay much, and you couldn't even get meat to eat. Such a simple reason was enough for him to give up working at the forestry station. But in the end, The facts prove that even though he didn't go work at the forestry station, he still ended up becoming one of its people. Because in September of 63, the forestry station began logging operations here, and the entire hunter's new village went to work for the forestry station. However, in his previous life, it was his father who became a forestry worker, while Li Weidong remained a hunter the whole time, much freer than his father. Woof 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 is Weidong home. The dogs in the house started barking, and a voice sounded from outside. As soon as Li Weidong heard it, he knew who it was. He quickly put down his bowl and chopsticks, answered, ran to the yard to tell the dogs to stop barking, then opened the yard gate and saw Wang Anhua, the teacher from the village primary school. This was Li Weidong's teacher, or rather, the teacher of everyone in the village, because there were only 3 teachers in the entire village primary school. Yet those 3 teachers had to be responsible for teaching school-age children from 5 surrounding villages, which was no easy job. Li Weidong greeted him warmly. "Teacher Wang, come in, come in. Have you come back to school early?" Wang Anhua gave a bitter smile and shook his head. "Weidong, I traveled back here overnight, and the school has run out of firewood, so I had no choice but to come to your house to ask for some hot water." Li Weidong warmly pulled the travel-worn Wang Anhua into the house. The family, who were eating breakfast, also quickly greeted him. One poured cooled tea, another served porridge, giving Wang Anhua no chance at all to decline. The family all respected this teacher very much. After all, both children had been taught by him, and the villagers held these teachers who educated and nurtured others in especially high regard. Wang Anhua had no choice but to eat. After he finished one bowl, Li Weidong served him another large bowl. Wang Anhua said with a smile, "It's still better on our side. I've been home on vacation for so long, and I haven't tasted meat more than a few times." Li Weidong knew that teacher Wang's family lived in the county town, and right now the city was nowhere near as good as their village. To put it bluntly, the village now has no grain, but it has fish and meat to eat. If they run out, they can just go hunting or fishing. In the city, everything is rationed and has to be bought with coupons, so village life is actually much better than city life. Li Weidong smiled and said, "Teacher, did you come back to school early because you had something to take care of?" Wang Anhua replied with a miserable look. "What business could there be? It's all because the city is facing a grain shortage right now. The whole family can't even eat their fill. I came back early just to leave some grain for my family." This was nothing unusual. The 3 teachers all had urban non-agricultural household registration and had only been assigned here to support rural education, with the commune supplying them extra grain, allowing them to save their own grain rations for their families. Now the county's grain ration has been cut very low. Ordinary workers only get 24 jin of grain per month, and family dependents get even less, only 17 jin. So people simply can't eat their fill. By saving his 24 jin of grain for his family like this, Teacher Wang could let them have a few more full meals. Li Tailu immediately said to Zhao Xiaofeng, "Kid's mom, in a bit send some vegetables and air-dried meat over to Teacher Wang. Teacher Wang came all this way to teach our children to read and write. We can't let him suffer hardship. Please don't, Tiniu, don't do this. The commune does issue us grain. I'll shamelessly accept the vegetables, but there's no need for the meat. You need it yourselves too, and you still have to sell it for money to buy grain. Teacher Wang, don't argue with me about this. If you don't accept it, then you're looking down on us. They say when a scholar meets a soldier, reason won't get through. This is exactly that kind of situation. This was experience everyone had summed up after dealing with them many times. These teachers of the new era believed in equality for everyone, so every time people brought up whether he looked down on them, they could make them unable to refuse. Li Weidong said cheerfully, "Teacher Wang, in a bit I'm going to hunt Filong with the others. I'll bring you some then, so you can try something fresh." Wang Anhua smiled and nodded. He did not refuse this kindness from his former student, and he truly liked the simple and honest local customs here. Not because he coveted the little things his student was giving him, but because the people here treated others with sincerity, which made him feel very comfortable. Li Weidong truly respected Teacher Wang deeply. If they had not appeared, he would have been like his father, an illiterate man who couldn't read a single word. After breakfast, Li Weidong let the teacher know, gathered his gear, and set out. While Teacher Wang also had to return to the school dormitory to tidy up the room and bedding. Very soon, Li Weidong met up with Li Fuguwei and Sunwazi. Li Fuguwei said with a smile, "Weidong's here, then let's set off." Sunwazi nodded and said, "Then let's go. I know that place takes an hour to reach, so we have to hurry, or someone else might beat us to it and take the spot first. Then let's go." Sunwazi's real name was actually Zhao Sanhua, but everyone called him by his nickname, Sunwazi. And once the habit formed, no one could call him by his proper name anymore. There were quite a lot of families with the surname Zhao in the village. Since everyone had only moved here to settle after the founding of the country, the surnames were rather mixed. Unlike other settlements, where basically one surname tended to dominate, the temperatures here were truly extreme. Throughout the year, basically only in July would the daytime temperature reach 26 or 27 degrees. Yet even in such summer weather, at night it could drop to just over 10 degrees. In January, the coldest part of winter, the daytime temperature was around -20 degrees, and at night the most extreme lows could drop to -40 degrees. So although it was now August and the daytime temperature was around 20 degrees, the only time people could wear short sleeves was during the daytime in July and August. At night they still had to wear jackets, otherwise it was very easy to catch a cold. In a region with such huge temperature differences, people's will was also tempered to be extremely tough. As they walked, Weidong began to feel something was off. The direction they were heading didn't seem quite right, and he couldn't help complaining. "Wait, Sunwazi, the place you're taking us to. It's not Haixaizi Ridge, is it? That place has so many pine trees and hazel trees. Who doesn't know there are lots of Filong over there?" Li Fugue also couldn't help saying, "Exactly. Sunwazi, if you're taking us to Haixaizi Ridge, then we're screwed. Yesterday, I heard several people say they were going to Haixaizi Ridge." Zhao Sanwa grinned and said, "Don't worry, I'm not stupid. How could I possibly take you to Haixaizi Ridge? Even dogs won't go there. If a whole bunch of people run there, how many could they possibly get?" Li Weidong asked. "Then where exactly are you taking us?" Zhao Sanwa pointed with his hand toward the area south of Haixaizi Ridge and said, "The place we're going is that area around Medunzi. The last time I was gathering mountain goods there, I ran into several flocks of hazel grouse. I was originally thinking of finding some time to set snares there, and it just so happens that now they also want dead ones. Otherwise, I wouldn't be willing to bring you along to hunt. At this time of year, hazel grouse are only bought alive because the temperature is still relatively high. If dead hazel grouse aren't cured, they simply won't keep for long. It's different after the snow falls. At that time, game won't spoil so quickly, so even if they're shot dead, it doesn't matter." After a long trek, they finally arrived. Li Weidong slapped 2 mosquitoes to death. August in the Greater Khingan Range was exactly when mosquitoes were running rampant. Though of course that was nothing much here. What hunters feared more were biting midges. But hunters also had mosquito-repelling tricks. They carried mugwort ropes, which could be lit to drive mosquitoes away. But this stuff wasn't convenient enough to carry, so they started collecting birch sap and smearing it on themselves. The pungent smell would keep the biting midges from coming near. Next, Zhao Sanwa used his hunting knife to make a small birch twig. Then after cutting at it for a while, he started tapping on it. He was making a birch whistle that could produce sounds to attract hazel grouse. Li Weidong and Li Fugue were not idle either. The two split up to observe the surroundings and look for signs of hazel grouse. Before long, Li Weidong spotted hazel grouse not far away, and more than one, but a flock of more than a dozen hazel grouse. He hurriedly turned back to find Zhao Sanwa and the others. "Sunwazi, there's a flock 50 meters ahead, but the terrain isn't very good. The trees around it are too dense, so we'll have to use bait to lure them out." Hearing this, Zhao Sanwa smiled and said, "Hee hee, I came prepared. I've already got the bait ready. Once Fugue gets back, we'll go lure them out." Li Weidong began loading bullets into his gun, getting ready for the ambush. The guns the three of them carried were all Type 52 small-caliber rifles. This kind of small-caliber rifle used 5.6 bullets, with limited killing power, so they wouldn't cause too much damage to hazel grouse meat, and the sound wouldn't be especially ear-splitting. Most importantly, this thing had a 5-round magazine, which meant one load let you fire 5 shots. This gun used to be a training rifle, and it was most suitable for hunting hazel grouse, pheasants, and even squirrels and rabbits. Just don't think about using it to hunt bigger game. For something like a roe deer, even if all 5 shots hit, it still wouldn't kill it. Li Fugue also came back, his face full of excitement as he said, "I ran over there and found 2 flocks of hazel grouse. What's going on with this place? I've never seen so many hazel grouse here before." Li Weidong, however, knew what was going on. He said with a smile, "Haha, I don't know about other things, but I do know about this. An hour farther down this way is the forest farm area. Logging is in full swing there right now, so the hazel grouse were disturbed and ran over here. Now that you mention it, that's really possible." After discussing it, the three decided to first hunt the flock Li Weidong had found, because the 2 flocks Li Fugue had found were relatively far away, and it was more suitable to deal with the nearer one first and the farther ones later. After settling the order, Zhao Sanhua also finished the whistle. Li Weidong led the two forward. After they arrived, he said nothing and pointed above the woods, signaling for the two of them to look. After observing for a moment, Zhao Sanhua softly said to the two of them, "This spot is good. Weidong, you go stake out the front over there first. Uncle Fugue, you stake out this side. I'll go to the open area in the middle to scatter bait and lure the birds. There should be about a dozen or so, and we should bring down at least 7 or 8 before shooting." Li Weidong nodded and said, "Same old rule. Each of us shoots the ones closest to our own direction, so we don't all shoot the same one. Also, no need for a signal either. Just start shooting once 8 have been lured in, so we don't miss the opportunity." Li Fugue nodded. "All right, then it's settled. All right, let's do it. Let's get moving." Li Weidong continued forward as lightly and quietly as possible. After walking about 20 meters, he crouched under a tree. Zhao Sanhua took out the hazelnuts he had prepared and partially shelled, pine nut powder, and hawthorn pulp, then scattered them over the open ground. After that, he ran to a nearby tree and started blowing his birch bark whistle. At first he blew softly, the sound low and a bit slow. This sound imitated the contact call of a female hazel grouse while foraging. He blew once, and then paused for more than 10 seconds. And after about 2 minutes, 2 male hazel grouse flew over. Seeing this, Zhao Sanhua adjusted the rhythm, following a long short-long pattern, which imitated the responsive calls of a hazel grouse flock and the chirping of chicks. After blowing for a few more minutes, more hazel grouse flew down from the woods. Li Weidong held up his gun, staring fixedly at the hazel grouse in the clearing. They were pecking at the bait Zhao Sanhua had scattered on the ground, but after all this time, only 5 hazel grouse had come. They waited patiently a little longer, and finally, more hazel grouse flew down. 6, 7, 8. Li Weidong kept one of them in his sights, and the moment the 8th one landed, it too ran over to peck at the bait, and he instantly pulled the trigger. 3 gunshots rang out almost at the same time. Li Weidong pulled back the bolt, pushed a round into the chamber, locked the bolt by turning it, then took aim again at the hazel grouse, taking flight, and fired. Bang, bang, bang. 3 more gunshots rang out, but unfortunately only 2 were left behind. The rest escaped. Not a bad result. This round brought down 5 hazel grouse, which was already a very good haul. Unfortunately, the 3 men's small caliber rifles were bolt action, and after firing 1 shot, no matter how skilled you were, it still took 2 or 3 seconds before you could fire a second shot, so it was basically impossible to keep all the hazel grouse from getting away. They did not rush to pick up the spoils. Instead, all 3 of them, as if by unspoken agreement, started picking up the spent casings. Because as long as these weren't deformed, they could be reloaded and used again and again, so they couldn't afford to waste even one. Since they were using lead bullets, this was the type hunters liked best. Because for hazel grouse like the ones they were shooting now, the wound was just a single hole, and the lead bullet wouldn't tear the meat to pieces. Zhao Sanhua ran over to gather up the hazel grouse, and while bleeding them with his knife, he said happily, "Wow, Weidong, your marksmanship is really accurate." Both hazel grouse were shot in the head without damaging the breast meat at all. Hearing this, Li Fugue hurried over to take a look. And when he saw that both hazel grouse really had been killed with a single shot to the head, without any damage to the meat on the other parts, he helped bleed them too and couldn't help praising again and again. Weidong's marksmanship is truly incredible. For hazel grouse this flawless, the purchasing station would never be able to force the price down. Li Weidong, however, didn't think it was anything special. After all, over the years he had fired countless shots, and the number of hazel grouse he had hunted was impossible to count. The hazel grouse resources in their area had always been abundant, and hazel grouse had long been one of the most important sources of food and income for the hunters in Hunter Village. He smiled and said to the 2 of them, "Not bad, I guess. It's just that without a semi-automatic, otherwise I could have gotten at least 3 or 4. Zhao Sanhua laughed and said, "Semi-automatics are very expensive now. At least 300 yuan each. It's no easy thing to earn 300 yuan to buy a semi-automatic." Li Fugue smacked his lips and said, "I want to buy a Type 56 semi-automatic too, but I'm poor as dirt. Who knows when I'll ever earn enough money to buy this thing. If you ask what the best hunting rifle is right now, it's definitely the Type 56 semi-automatic. This gun is good for taking down large game, or small game alike, and 7.62 caliber bullets are enough to inflict great damage even on large prey. And this gun is also highly accurate, with long range and great power. Definitely one of the good guns every hunter wants. It's just that the Type 56 is especially scarce right now, and priority is given to the Orichan people, so hunters like them don't get any discount if they want to buy one. While hunters of other ethnic groups can buy guns at discounted prices for just a little over 100. Life for the hunters here isn't especially hard, but it's also difficult to become well off. Because all daily necessities have to be bought, and they're all goods sold at negotiated prices. All the money they earn has to be spent on basic necessities and guns and ammunition, so they simply can't save much. Most importantly, there are too many people in the big hunting groups. While having more people means greater strength, it also means each person gets a smaller share of the money. So Weidong wants to form his own hunting group, and he doesn't need many people. 4 or 5 would be enough. That way, the game they catch wouldn't have to be split into so many shares, and only then could they save up money. But right now he's still just a half-grown kid. Not even 18 yet, and he hasn't shown off his hunting skills, so no one would be willing to form a fixed hunting group with him. So this matter still needs to be planned slowly. Only by bagging enough prey himself can he convince others, and when the time comes, forming his own fixed hunting group will be much easier. Weidong said to the two of them with a smile, "Let's go. Let's make the most of our time and take down a few more flocks. Try to get a few more hazel grouse today, so when we go back we can get a bigger share of the money to save up." Li Fuguwei said cheerfully, "All right, this time I'll lure the hazel grouse. I know the locations of the hazel grouse flocks pretty well. Fine, this time Uncle Fuguwei, you'll be responsible for luring the hazel grouse." The forest here was vast, and the three of them spent the whole day rushing from place to place, looking for hazel grouse flocks to lure out and hunt. By 3 in the afternoon, the three of them had already brought down 17 hazel grouse, 12 spruce grouse, 2 rabbits, and had even captured a silly roe deer alive. Speaking of this silly roe deer, since the guns they brought basically couldn't kill it, they waited in hopes of catching it by chance. Actually, the reason silly roe deer stand still is because their fur is white in winter and brown in summer, allowing them to blend perfectly into forests and snowfields. So when they encounter danger, their first reaction is not to run away, but to choose to stay motionless. By reducing the movement of their own outline, they make it hard for predators to lock onto them through dynamic vision, and this method is very effective when facing predators. But when facing a hunter's eyes or gun barrel, staying still instead turns them into a live target. So it's easy for people to mistake them for stupidly standing there waiting to die. And roe deer are herd animals, extremely sensitive to the calls and movements of their companions. Once the group is scattered, they instinctively return to the original spot to look for their companions. They may even circle around a companion's corpse, mistakenly thinking they can wake it up. Because the natural enemies of roe deer never make sudden loud noises like gunshots, their reaction to gunshots is not fear, but curious investigation. They will subconsciously run back to check the source of the strange sound, completely unaware that it is a deadly signal. The hunters here had long since figured out these habits of roe deer, and when hunting they would deliberately shoot one and leave one. They would first kill one roe deer, not rush to retrieve it, but lie in ambush nearby. Then when the other frightened roe deer, having run off, returned out of curiosity or to look for their companion, they would shoot the other roe deer, turning what could have been 2 shots for 2 animals into 3 shots for 3 animals. Some hunters would even imitate the cry of a roe deer to lure separated ones to approach on their own. So the silly roe deer isn't actually silly. It's just in its nature, and with hunters being too cunning, it only makes them seem so clumsy. A behavior like standing still on the spot can often make their natural enemies, wolves and bears, briefly lose sight of them, thus giving them a chance to escape. After all kinds of natural selection, the creatures of nature have only then developed these rules for survival, yet they are completely useless in the face of hunters and firearms. Weidong and the others took advantage of this exact point and successfully captured alive this silly roe deer that had curiously run back. This male roe deer weighed nearly over 70 gene. So Weidong carried the hazel grouse and black grouse he had bagged on a pole, while Li Fuguwei and Zhao Sanhua used a long wooden pole to carry the roe deer, and the group happily headed down the mountain. Without this silly roe deer, their earnings actually wouldn't have been particularly good, because the buying station was only offering 1 yuan per black grouse now, and selling those things wasn't even as good as keeping them to eat themselves. Rabbits were even cheaper. Although rabbit is meat, it has no fat, so these things were 0.8 yuan each. So the 3 decided to keep the 2 rabbits and 12 black grouse, and sell the hazel grouse and the roe deer, then split the money together. It had taken them more than an hour on the way there, but on the way back, because they had gone deep into the forest. It took them more than 2 hours to return to the village. At this time, a vehicle was parked at the buying station. When Lu Qingjun saw them return with their game, he immediately beamed and ran over. You guys worked hard. You actually even caught a live roe deer. I can count a live one at 30 yuan for you. Li Fuguei was stunned when he heard this, and then he asked in great surprise, Old Lu, how come a live roe deer gets such a good price? Silly roe deer really aren't worth much. At most one is only worth 20 yuan. No one expected a live one to be worth 30 yuan, which indeed surprised everyone a little. Lu Qingjun smiled and explained to them, here's the situation. Right now they're supporting factory production, but the meat supply is insufficient. And now the weather makes transportation extremely difficult, so the higher-ups have raised the purchase price for live game. The purpose is to encourage everyone to catch more live game to support factory production. So that's how it is. While everyone suddenly understood, they also started having some ideas in mind. Other live game might be hard to catch, but silly roe deer weren't difficult. The 17 hazel grouse sold for a total of 42.5 yuan, and with the 30 yuan from the silly roe deer added, Li Fuguei got an extra 0.5 yuan because he didn't want the rabbits, while Li Weidong and Zhao Sanhua each got 24 yuan. This abundant haul made all three of them very happy. After all, earning 24 yuan in a single day was quite rare under normal circumstances. Only during the winter hunting season could they get this kind of harvest, mainly because game was hard to preserve now. If Li Weidong went to set snares or hunt squirrel pelts, he wouldn't make this much money in a day. But all three of them had gotten ideas, so after dividing up the black grouse, they didn't immediately leave for home. Instead, they gathered in a corner and started discussing it. Li Weidong said to the two of them, since live game is fetching such a good price now, how about the three of us keep going together tomorrow to catch roe deer? If we're lucky enough to catch one, each of us can split 10 yuan. That's way better than hunting gray squirrel pelts. Li Fuguei nodded and said, right now gray squirrel pelts are 1 yuan apiece. In a whole day, who knows whether we can even get 10 of them. So we might as well team up to catch roe deer. Zhao Sanhua thought for a moment, then nodded and said to Li Weidong, I think teaming up is workable, but Weidong, your side has to provide the dogs. And it's best to bring your family's Haizi along to help find the roe deer. Fuguei uncle, bring your family's Huzi too. Otherwise, if it's just us relying on luck, that would be a bit too uncertain. Neither of them had any objections. Bringing along 2 scent hounds would indeed make it easier to find roe deer. But since this wasn't a dog drive hunt, the game couldn't be divided according to the hunting group's usual rules. After discussing it, the three of them decided to bring their hunting rifles as well, and Zhao Sanhua would be responsible for bringing his pack horse. That way, if they ran into a herd of roe deer, they could capture them alive if possible. And if not, they could shoot a few. The roe deer taken with the hunting rifles this time weren't for selling for money, but for their own families to eat. The live ones would be sold for money, and the dead ones would be divided up for each family to eat. After agreeing to set out at 6 o'clock tomorrow, the three of them took their things and started heading home. Second brother, we really have no other way, but we can't miss this rare opportunity. Third brother, what do you think? Just after returning home, Li Weidong heard voices coming from inside the house, seemingly his third aunt's voice. He frowned, trying to recall whether he remembered his third aunt coming to visit in his previous life, and soon he remembered. In his previous life, third aunt and third uncle had come by to borrow money to buy a job.